612 guy. Thanks, Dan. Great interview. I was born in 74, the year Bird left Indiana University. I grew up watching Larry and have remained a huge fan my whole life. I just ordered the book after you talked about it. Can't wait to read it. I don't think you'll be disappointed. And it's personal for me, like I said, because we can play the fantasy game, right? If Larry Bird had stayed at Indiana University in 1974, he would have been on a team that included Kent Benson, Scott May, a terrific college scorer, Quinn Buckner, a great point guard and one of the great leaders in college basketball history. The team that went undefeated the year I covered him, 32-0, 75-76, he'd have been a part of that team. Now, again, which Scott may have had as many opportunities to score because of Larry Joe Bird, whatever, but it is astounding to think that team is considered one of the best teams in the history of college basketball, as it is, at 32-0, last on the men's side undefeated champion. And if you plug in Larry Joe Bird to that, it might literally be the best team in the history of college basketball. And that's saying something because it didn't have Lou Alcindor / Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It's amazing to think about that. And, you know, I didn't get to it with the writer of the book, Keith O'Brien, but he also writes about not just maybe the mismatch of him rooming with Jim Wisman, a guy who, good-looking guy, had a lot of clothes, the whole bit, was a little less blue-collar, even though he wasn't exactly born on third base, but everybody was compared to Larry. There are also stories that, like, in scrimmages and practice and, like, pickup games with other players, that he got mocked and ridiculed a lot. And The rumor is, I was talking to Bozich about this, Rick Bozich, who came in same time. He actually got there the year before I did. So he would have gotten to IU in 72. I got there 73. Larry Bird landed in 74. Was that Kent Benson, who was the center on those great Indiana teams, was kind of Jackassian with Larry Joe Bird. And what's interesting is if you think of Bird today and what he became as a pro, and you go, well, he wouldn't have curled up in the fetal position for that. He'd have gone bleep you and then kicked your ass, right? But the Larry Bird then, in that sense, didn't respond that way to those kinds of stimuli, one could say. He was not in a position where he felt either confident enough to do that, even though, as O'Brien said, he always thought he was a good player. He even quit an all-star team the summer before he went to Indiana because he didn't think he played enough in the second half of one of the games, which got him in trouble with the IU people, including the sports writer, now the late great sports writer, Bob Hamill, who was in Bloomington forever. So it is, I don't know. I don't know if Kent Benson has ever acknowledged that, or maybe he's even denied it. Maybe it was another player, but it doesn't sound like he was welcomed at all. And that also contributed to a feeling of, what am I doing here? I don't belong here. The school's too big for me. I don't want to be a part of a school that's, got an enrollment of 40,000. It's overwhelming me, whatever the case may be. It was 30-some thousand, I think, then, whatever the case may be. But it was also, he just didn't feel like he was treated very well. And again, we think of the trash-talking Bird of later. Right. Like, well, that just would have, just like a come off his back, like, well, big deal. Do whatever you want to. Me, I'm Larry Bird. Doesn't really make it. But he wasn't Larry Bird yet, even though he played for a team called Hancock Construction. That's still the best nugget of all.
And I found a column in an Indianapolis Monthly magazine from like 11 years ago that does a deep dive into that, because I'd never heard that.
Right.
And at the time, he won the state AAU tournament with Hancock Construction. It was like weeks after his dad killed himself. So they've got this picture. So that's a big part of it. Mm-hmm. And even Larry says he doesn't even really remember playing for Hancock Construction all that much because he was in such a fog and just a different place in his life and a sad place in his life. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it is. And again, it worked out great at Indiana State because that's really the majority of the book is about that, and that Hodges, the coach, did figure the kid out, and he did connect with him in a way. And I still maintain part of it was at Indiana, you didn't have to connect to any one kid that way because they were an embarrassment of riches already. Knight was getting anybody he wanted already at that point, right? And it's clear Knight didn't know how good he had a chance to be, because the assumption would be, as if he did, Knight was not stupid. He would have found a way to see if we're going to, I'm going to do A, B, C, and D to try to get this kid to hang in there for more than 15 minutes. We all know how insensitive and cruel Knight could be, but he also wasn't stupid. He wanted talent, and I don't know, there's not much reason to think that he had really spent enough time around him to even sense what he might have in him. Because if you think of the way Bird plays, doesn't he strike you as the perfect Knight player in that, a great passer, knows how to play with other players, right? Knows how to make other people good around him. Is as smart a player as probably has ever played the game. And guess what? Didn't have all the athleticism and natural skill of a Magic Johnson, for example. And that's usually what Knight would gravitate towards, right? I don't always necessarily need to have the best talent. I want a guy who just knows how to play. And maybe is even to that extent a bit of an overachiever. So I think it's a good if you're into this sort of basketball history. I think centering it on that, because there's been a million things written about what happened with Larry in the pros and the relationship with Magic that grew over the years, et cetera, et cetera. Did you find another nugget? Oh, I thought you found maybe another.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to print this out for
Benson
you.
Did they say anything about players that were mean to him in particular?
Honestly,
Bird was there?
I scrolled ahead to the Hancock construction part more than anything.
Well, here's the other nugget that's interesting even today. Because of the reputation that Knight fashioned eventually, right, at Indiana, in a lot of ways quite negative as it got worse and they won fewer games in the postseason. People would look back on the Bird decision and they would assume Knight ran him out. He got there, reamed him out a couple times in practice, and Knight and Bird didn't want any part of that kind of abuse. And it is an utter myth. Now, that might have happened, I guess. Eventually, but it had nothing to do with it. He had never even really worked with him in terms of a series of practices enough to even have a chance to yell at him or annoy him or make him want to leave. Has zero to do with what happened to take place. But because that narrative, the assumption was, oh yeah, of course, it ran off another guy. Larry couldn't handle the nonsense that was a part of Knight's coaching technique.
Who was the Indiana State coach? Do you remember? Was it King?
Hodges.
Okay.
King, I think, may have been the AD.
Okay.
Yeah, Hodges, I think, was the he's still alive, according to the writer.
There was a part of this story that I'm reading about coaches in general that he was also thinking about leaving Terre Haute,
Indiana.
Because in Indiana State, he was mad that the coach kept taking him out of scrimmages, and he thought that he should play more.
Okay, yeah.
And the head coach had to tell him, I'm only taking you out so you don't humiliate the rest of the team. And Bird said, well, if they're going to lose, they're going to lose. And so they had an agreement that I'm not going to take you out. I'm going to leave you in. But he, apparently, according to this story, he was ready to pack up and go back to French Lick as well from Indiana State.
That's pretty good.
Interesting guy.
Very. And to my point, somebody just texted, Bird was smart enough not to want to play for an a-hole like Knight. Well, he may have been, but he wasn't around Knight long enough to understand his a-holedom at all. And again, keep in mind, there were a lot of great players then who handled whatever Knight was delivering. They won a national championship with as I said, some of the great names in college basketball history. So you can go with it if it makes you feel better about criticizing Knight. And I sure as hell have criticized him plenty over the years. There's no doubt about that. As long as you just don't, if you don't care about facts, and it's more important that you just feel good about the position you've taken, have at it. But it had zero to do with what took place in this particular case. We'll make this our first pause of the 4 o'clock hour. Don't forget, baseball conversation yet again with Kevin Kernan in about 15 minutes from ball9.com. Larry Joe Bird's form of exacting revenge on Kent Benson in the pros could be learning that Benson's going to be matched up attempting to guard Larry's teammate, Kevin McHale.
Good luck.
And so as the story goes on that particular night, a night when McHale scored 56 points, Bird didn't try to score on Benson. He tried to make sure that McHale embarrassed Benson by feeding him early, middle, and often. I think that was in 1985.
It was.
McHale scored 56 points, which was a Celtics record at the time. Now, there are highlights you can find of Bird putting Benson in the spin cycle. In fairness to Benson, he was a center, right? And so the idea that he's going to guard Bird is absurd. That's not going to work. Now, he should be able, allegedly, as an inside player, to guard McHale, because McHale basically lived inside, right?
Absolutely.
Great fundamental footwork, great low post moves, etc.
If you ever went to a basketball camp in the 90s, and I'm guessing the 80s, you did a Kevin McHale up and under.
Yes.
Everybody had to practice the Kevin McHale up and under.
Understandably. Yeah, it's fundamentally sound stuff is what it was, right? Over and over and over again. In fact, who's our local kid who's the big man, or one of the big men for Oklahoma City?
Chet Holmgren?
Holmgren. Did you see Holmgren's footwork on an up and under?
No.
Against us?
No.
The other day?
In the second half?
I don't remember when it was. It was textbook. It was old school, big time, fundamentally sound footwork, a la McHale, a la Tim Duncan. It was a thing of beauty to see. I was impressed.
Yeah,
right
he's
there,
got great
feet. I lost
feet.
myself in his eyes on that play alone.
What I love,
now, he didn't repeat it that I remember, but it was a great play. And I think it might. I don't know if Rudy, who was guarding him at the point, but whoever it was, he lost him with the footwork.
What I love about the Bird Benson 56 point story is that, because I knew about the 56 points because there was somewhere along the line, I don't remember where I saw this, that Bird was telling McHale, you better get 60 because I'm going to break your record. And he did. And he did. 9 days later, he scored 60.
That's
so
right.
it's it's just the minds of those guys back then. We've talked about the Jordan stuff forever, but that you're going to get the record because I need you to humiliate this guy, if that's part of the story, which I'm sure it could be. You're going to get the record, but while you're getting the record, I'm going to tell you, you better get more because I'm going to break your record. Meanwhile, I'm your teammate, and then he did.
And he did.
9 days later, got 60. That's just the best.
It's Larry Legend, man. It's a different. I mean, these individuals just they don't come along every 15 minutes. They just don't. I mean, there's no question about that. Somebody's saying, I get your point about Bird, but maybe we can agree that in hindsight, Bird years later was glad he left. That might well be true.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that. That may well be, and I don't know how often Bird has talked about that. It may be that even though in a basketball sense I think the fit would be great, maybe from an emotional sense it would not have been. But again, Knight played favorites. It's a myth that he didn't. My guess is Larry Bird in no time would have been one of his favorites. The way Quinn Buckner was. The way Scott May was. He gave those, the way Isaiah Thomas was. He gave great players more leeway despite his reputation. But I doubt Larry Bird looks back on it as a mistake that he left. Right. He obviously carved out. I mean, he's more mythic at Indiana State in a sense that he ever would have been at Indiana, because at Indiana he would have been one of many.
One of the many
point.
banners that they have at your place, Assembly Hall.
And there he didn't win it, but he single-handedly carried his team to the championship game and remains mythic, one of the few teams that remains mythic even though they lost the championship game.
His mom in this story that I was telling you about was quoted as saying, Larry didn't really want to go to Indiana, but felt the pressure of being the Indiana kid.
Right.
The one that can get out, that can go play for, at the time, the most legendary coach, maybe in basketball, certainly one of them, certainly in the state of Indiana. That's a pretty big deal. But she said she wished Knight would have just left him alone because she could tell he didn't want to go.
Yeah.
So
it may not have been a good fit.
Which happens a lot.
It does. Yeah, that's very, very possible. Even though, as I said, in a basketball sense, he represents so fundamentally sound playing that it's unbelievable. I still can't get past the who'd you play for before you went to college? Hancock Construction.
Yeah,
that's the best. That's just the best.
It's
it
like
says everything
Major
about
League Rick Vaughn.
The uniqueness of his story.
Yeah.
Right. That there's just not another story quite like Larry Joe Bird. I can't believe we milked an hour out of it, but I think it was worth it. I really enjoyed The Guest, the new book by Keith O'Brien, who wrote the definitive Pete Rose book called, I believe, Charlie Hustle. He's back now with one on the Bird young years and Indiana State years, and he's calling the book Heartland, where he does try to, I think, give you a little insight into the poverty that he grew up in and the circumstances that he grew up in as well. I wonder if he'll ever read it. Bird did not cooperate, which is not surprising, given his history. But I wonder if he might at some point be a little bit curious and say, I might crack open the book, the e-version of the book. Cliff's Notes version, I don't know. How much does Larry read a lot?
Audiobook?
Audiobook. Maybe that's the way to go, because that's what I think isn't that what Bozich said he got?
Yep.
That's it. All right, how about some baseball conversation? The U.S., I think this is the second straight time we lose in the gold medal game, right? It was a dramatic gold medal game. And I know our next guest will have a lot to say about who won and why and the larger ramifications of what we might learn from this entire international baseball experience. It's the one and the only. He's the nerd's best friend. His name is Kevin Kernan, and he is coming up next. As if there are months between Kevin Kernan's visits on this program. And then you feel like it was only yesterday he was on. Well, not literally, but I think it was last week, wasn't it, Gaardsy?
That sounds right.
And now Kevin Kernan, because sometimes duty calls, and sometimes another timely Kernan appearance is the only thing that will fit the bill. He joins us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline as we welcome you back to the program. I want to ask a totally unrelated to baseball question, because clearly the main reason to have you on was to talk about the championship game last night, and I know you have a lot of thoughts about the whole cosmic meaning of it, and indeed what took place last evening. But we had just talked earlier in the show with a writer named Keith O'Brien, who has a new Larry Bird book out centering on.
Yeah, I know Keith.
You know Keith,
I have him on my podcast. Yeah.
There you go. Terrific journalist, as you know. And a lot of it, then we started talking about the fact that apparently Kent Benson was part of the reason that Bird left Indiana prematurely, because Benson bullied him, the big center. And obviously later, Bird might have exacted revenge a few times in the NBA. Give me Kevin Kernan's best Larry Joe Bird memory or story. You got to have one or two, I would think.
Well, first of all, I read the book, great book, and Bird does admit too he was a little childish at that point.
Yes.
A couple things, I was always there when Bird, when they had to, when he basically threatened the Lakers, saying, "Well, we're going to fix that tomorrow," and then they, you know what they did to Rambis and all that stuff.
Right.
So what I appreciate most about Bird was his ability to be a warrior and not give a damn. But I will tell you one quick thing that Peter Vesey told me, because Peter. Peter's legendary.
Yes.
And I saw Peter recently. Believe it or not, he's a big Brooklyn Dodgers fan. And but we were talking about Bird, and he made one of those New York Post trips, which I told you about last time that they let us used to make.
Right.
So he went to Bird's home, and they go down in the basement. Now it wasn't a great it wasn't like a man cave basement. It was a basic basement you would find in Indiana. And there's two MVP trophies sitting on the fridge, just sitting there.
Just on the fridge.
Just on the fridge.
Extra trophies, Dusty, collecting dust, right?
Kind of like I have my 1989, softball championship trophy somewhere here.
Very much the same.
That's Bird.
That's Larry Joe Bird. That's for sure.
And what a clubhouse, a locker room. Bird.
Oh.
The best I would get Maxwell to do imitations of Bernard King's walk, and those were hilarious because Bernard had a certain sachet, and Cornbread had a way to do it. And you got me sidetracked, but one other quick Celtics story. So after they win a championship, I say, "Hey Max, what are you going to do next?" And he gives me a long answer, but he's from North Carolina. He's basically going to say, "Going to take my Caddo, which was a Cadillac, on the hottest day of the year. I'm going to go down and find the guys working the prison, working the streets, pouring the blacktop. I'm going to sit there, roll down my window, and say, I got nothing to do today, boys. Nothing to do." Where do you get that? Good. You don't get that stuff.
No, you can't get that. No, that's too good. All right, so last night. Where do you want to begin? It's being hailed by a lot of the media jackals, a lot of the ball guys, as a win for everybody in the larger sense. Do you want to start with the larger sense, or do you want to start with what happened specifically last night, 3-2 Venezuela over Team USA?
Well, first of all, especially the USA writers, if you're writing it's a win for everybody, you're a loser. This was an unbelievable loss for the United States. Dream team. This was Dream Team. This was like our Dream Team we had way back when we were just talking about.
Yeah.
So I think here's my biggest problem. And I talked to Rob Dibble about this earlier today. He had me on his show as well. And being a former reliever. Dan, you know what life is all about. You're either in or you're out. Mm-hmm. You can't be halfway. Once Mason Miller restrictions were out there and some other things, you're out. You're fighting with one hand tied behind your back.
You're right.
It's a freaking joke. It's not like the promos they're doing because Team USA didn't really care as much, and Venezuela cared, much more, more. It was unbelievable the way they played. But I will say this: I love Venezuela team. I love those guys. I love Cabrera and Don Miggy forever. Johan Santana, he was and I had somebody tell me this, one of the MLB people, what they've been through since 1999 in that country and those players, because even if you make a lot of money, you gotta have security for your family and things like that. What they accomplish means so much, and you can see it in Suarez. Suarez, to me, a former manager of his told me today that he was one of the most beautiful people he ever coached. So from that perspective, I love it. I love I love the WBC because people care. They hustle.
They do.
They do everything. But, Team USA, talk the big game, didn't have a game. 25 strikeouts the last two games. That's brutal. That's brutal. Rodriguez, 4 1/3 shutout innings, 5 ERA. All the details. So it's, and then you also hear the excuse making, and I already heard it from a couple players today and some other people. Well, this should be in the All-Star break. This should be a few weeks down the road. Hey, all the guys from the other countries getting ready, even the American guys from Team USA, Italy got ready. So that's BS. I take it back to the Sandlot. When the rich kids came over and wanted to play the Sandlot boys, it's basically anytime, anywhere, fellas. That's how it should be. But we've become so soft as a team and a little bit as a country that we let them, we let them basically destroy us. This thing was set up for America to win. Couldn't have an easier path. The same relievers that pitched the night before had to come back for Venezuela. You didn't hear those guys complaining. Palencia, I guarantee you this, and knowing the Cubs, we don't want him pitching on back-to-back days. I guarantee that Palencia went to the Cubs and said, hey, this is my country, I'm pitching. So he shut him down. So there's a whole different mindset the rest of the world has than our guys have. And our guys, they went in there with the right mindset. And one other thing that really pissed me off, this is going to rattle some cages. Scooble, what are you doing wearing a hockey jersey? What are you doing in the dugout? If you're not pitching, you pitch 3 innings against Great Britain. Could have used you against the Dominican. Could have used you against, maybe back up McLean in this game. So get out of the I go where Bobby Cox used to say, hey, if you're in the dugout, put on your cleats, get a glove, because I'm going to use you. So those are some of the things off the top of my head.
To your point, we started the show yesterday with a headline of all places, the Wall Street Journal. This was going into the final game. Uh-huh. Team USA has the best pitchers in the world. Why can't it use them? And it speaks to your issue. We're half in, half out, and let's not pretend we were all in just because the games were dramatic, because we weren't all in. It's just factual, especially when it comes to pitchers.
Venezuela was all in.
Yeah.
You know what? I guarantee you. No. How about? Did you notice the shot of Paul Skeens at the end?
No.
Just sitting there. He was standing in that dugout. A couple things, because you know me, Dan. I look at dugouts. Even at the Mets and Yankees, when I was daily around them, I would sit away from the other writers where I could look into the Yankees or Mets dugout, because you see so much.
Yep.
So 2 things caught my eye. First of all, before the game started, Pete Crow Armstrong, your guy, Buxton, playing center field. What the hell? Why? So that was a downer to begin within the guy.
Right.
But after the game, Skeens is standing there, and I was reading his mind, and it was almost like, oh my God, I'm back in Pittsburgh. We can't hit. And again, Skeens has to be feeling that, because I guarantee you, Skeens would have pulled a Yamamoto. If we got to that thing and there was an inning where he had to go last night, he would have went. Same way, and I got to compliment Jax, your guy there. This kid, that guy. He's a weapon, and so we had guys that wanted to be in, but our organization and DeRosa got abused for lots of reasons. But we also took it from an analytics approach. We were playing launch angle baseball. They were playing baseball. Moved the runner over. Yep. They scored their 2 runs in baseball ways. We only scored the last 4 runs scored in the last 2 games were by home runs. So if you look in there's another scene in the dugout. The assistant hitting coach has got graphs and all this other stuff, video for Team USA. Then you go in the Venezuela dugout, and there is Miguel Cabrera exhorting his guys on, getting passionate about, let's go, let's get the hit. So they played baseball. We played nerd ball. So there's that famous word. We played nerd ball. And then we let the nerds tell us, no, you can't use this guy only in this situation. So poor Mason Miller, the way he ripped that medal off he wasn't mad not only about getting second place. I guarantee you he was mad. He was mad at Padres organization for not letting him pitch. And that'll be interesting in him going back to Peoria.
Have we seen, to get back to what you mentioned at the start, I can't remember the last time I saw a team win something and reveal that level of joy and satisfaction. That part of it was, I could have watched that, I think, for another hour. It was, because it all felt, you know why? None of it felt choreographed, right? It all felt real, exuberance over the moment. And that part of it was hard to top, don't you think?
Never seen anything like it. I've been to so many different championships, and there, guys win the World Series, they cry a little bit. This was like a moment of celebration for everyone in the country, but really meaningful, real tears. Omar Lopez didn't get paid, I don't think. What a job he did too. Yeah. Keeping these guys together. And I know a lot of Venezuelan players through the years. Very classy guys that play the game the right way. And it gets back to what I originally said at the start. We don't want to bring politics into sports. I understand that. But, their world has been turned upside down, for basically 26 years. And to have this moment where they prove they're the best in the world. And, Rosenthal had a great interview with Suarez afterwards. Mm-hmm. And these are guys, too. I'm going to point this out to everybody because it's important. They prayed every day before the game started. Suarez is like a pastor. I mean, the way his emotion and things like that. So all that emotion came flooding out. The dam broke, And these guys, it was like Suarez said, we're really family. We hear that so much, but you could tell that these guys were family, and they wanted to show the world that they could do it, and they did it. So from that respect, it's a great event. Don't move it. Have it at that time of year because you got a chance. And one other thing I'd like to point out, hey, USA, if you really want to get into it and get a head start, maybe send some of your guys down to the Caribbean to play some winter ball to get a head start. How about playing some of your gritty players? We played all our superstars. We left the gritty players, they weren't in the lineup at the end. And that, Ernie Clement, whatever happened to him? I thought he had the most hits in postseason history last year. Never saw him again.
Is it possible that the reviews being so positive of the event itself might convince the baseball powers that be to next time around have both feet in rather than what we seem to have? Is that at all possible, or do you think there's still going to be, especially with pitchers, the way people want to, be careful about pitchers and Tommy John surgery and the season just coming up? Are we always going to be playing this thing halfway? Is there any chance this might energize things to say, no, let's literally get all in next time?
Two things here. Great question. The nerds will never change. Nerds never admit they're wrong. When was the last time a nerd was fired from the front office or the analytics guys were fired? Yeah. Never happened. Yeah. Second thing is, this is the real danger area, and I want to warn everybody of this. If I'm a really good player next time, am I going to go all in? Why do I need to sign up for this? I'm going to get abused because we're not giving it all. Right. You expect these front offices to change? And the worst thing is we've created a generation of players now who are afraid that they're going to get hurt. Skubal was afraid, him and Scott Boras. And I get it. There's all that money in there. But let's face it, Dan, Skubal's getting $32 million. Worst case scenario, he's okay for life, okay? He's okay for life, but he's going to, even if he blew out, somebody would still sign him for, so much. Right. So I think players are going to take the danger areas, or the players are going to say next time, is it worth it? Once they start asking that, and that's the question we should be asking these guys when we see them. Is it worth it? They may give you the song and dance. Oh, it's something great to have the USA across my chest. But if and again, I'm not saying it's similar to the military, but a lot of guys brought up the military. Skeens was in there because of the military. You want to show those guys, hey, we respect what you're doing. But I'm old, Dan, and I remember I was in, my generation was in the Vietnam War, and I was lucky. My lottery number was over 200. I didn't go in, but a lot of my friends did. And when I talked to them when they came back, it was kind of like, hey, we had one hand tied behind our back. Nobody wants to go into anything with one hand tied behind their back. And that's where we are right now as a country with this WBC. And man, by the way, we don't know tiebreakers and we don't wear ties for the champions for giving us a medal.
Tweet on that.
Come on.
You were not happy about the casual attire. How do we end up? So what's the final grade we give the manager? What do you think?
I got to give him. I'm going to go with the name DeRosa. I'm going to give him a D. He had some. He had his hands tied, but you know what? And this is me, Dan. This is why I would get in trouble. Say I get that call from and I get the call from the Padres or the text. Hey, we can only do them if you got the league going into the ninth. Blah blah blah. You know what? I go into that meeting and I talk to Mason Miller first, and like somebody from baseball told me, ask the player, not the organization. If the player's okay, he should play. So I go into that meeting, and this is how DeRosa could have turned it all around. I go into that meeting before the game. I say, hey, just talk to the Padres guys. They said that our big gun Miller here, we can't even catch him. Will Smith, you can't even catch him with the pass balls. They said he can only go if we have the league going into the ninth, to close it out. And you know what? BS on that. If I need him, he's going in. You'll give me whatever I need, right, Mason? Yeah, let's go. And then they charge out and they win the thing by 10 runs.
Yeah, there you go.
Then he gets an A. But he had his hands tied with certain things, not knowing the rules. And as we talked last time, it wasn't just him. PR department, Mike Hill. So, but that's got to be the first thing he knows. And he can't be buddy-buddy with his boys from MLB Network. Listen to what they say. It's a tough thing. I'll give him an A. Here's what I'll give him an A. He did a great job recruiting. He got the guys he had to get. Right. He has his hands tied by management, but then he also could have pushed back. He could have given more pushback. I'm not honoring the Padres there. I'm winning the WBC, and that's what I say.
Yeah, I like that. By the way, you mentioned the tie thing. Is it fair to say that you were fairly inspired when your guy, Pat Riley, they just unveiled a big new statue of him outside the Lakers arena, and Riley was mused about a lot of stuff, and one of the things he mentioned is a desire, one of his dreams would be to get back to a time when the NBA head coaches wore suits again. I'm guessing you gave that particular muse a standing ovation.
Absolutely. I'm all for it. And also college coaches. That's why I love what Pitino's doing. Yeah. Pitino's wearing a suit and tie, And by the way, Riley, I was once told, and I think Pat might have told me this way back when, because I love Pat Riley.
Hard not to.
Because he puts on this image of this, this L.A. clean, slick guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a kid from Schenectady, that part of New York. And I heard that it was actually his wife who created the image that the Armani
the Showtime deal. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, his wife deserves the credit for that. And to Pat's credit, what do? You listen to your wife, and he's created that, and I'm 100% behind that. We need more suits and ties. Yeah. Getting back to Manfred, he must have just came home from the golf course because he knew he was handing out another piece of metal, and we can figure that one out.
Another good Chief shot. You're the best, man. I hope you got it out of your system because I don't want it. I don't want it welling in your belly. I don't want it because then it's bad to get. You got to get it out. If it's just stuck in there, man, all that acid.
We were just talking about that with my steak sandwich I had. Yeah, I had a great day going with a steak sandwich.
Yeah.
That was unbelievable. But I've been fuming, and I've been able to vent today. And I'm also writing my column for ball9.com, which will come tomorrow. So it's out. It's out now. I've moved on. I just feel bad for my boy Aaron Judge. I'd love to talk to Judge right now and see how he's feeling. He's got to be pissed to the world.
Yeah, that's probably true. But yeah, it's good to see you get that bile out, man. You don't want it to congeal in there. It's not good.
Hey, I'm 72. I gotta figure it out.
Absolutely. Good to talk with you, my friend. We'll be in touch. Thanks as always.
Take care.
I appreciate you. Kevin Kernan, longtime ball writer, but really longtime tabloid writer, covered a lot of NBA, covered a lot of baseball, covered a lot of everything. A generalist, one could say. But more recently, baseball has been his area via the website he writes for these days, ball9.com. You were saying?
I draw inspiration from so many of our guests and learned a lot about Larry Bird today, and there's different ways. I think the lesson I learned from today's show, if we did Dan Patrick, what'd you learn today? He said, Gaardsy, what did you learn today? If you're saying that both teams, that everyone should be happy with what happened last night and we're all winners, you're a loser.
So good.
Kevin Kernan. That's what he opened with.
That's it. Right out of the gate.
If you're saying everybody won last night, you're a loser.
Brushes you back immediately. Just so you don't get
off
any
the plate
complacent.
now.
Yeah, that's off the plate for sure. Well, and it contrasts because everyone else is we're celebrating the bigness of it, the whole event.
Yes, the World Baseball Classic.
We lost to the United States of America.
We're soft as a country.
We are soft. It's not so much, some of it is softness. Some of it, again, is just lack of commitment to the bit, which we did talk about yesterday, that if it is a bit deceptive to say, this is all wonderful, and look at the emotion of this thing, and everybody's into it so much, when we weren't into it that much, not enough to make sure that the best, whoever the manager wanted to use, he could use. That's how you prove that everybody's in it and everybody really feels like it's something special. Otherwise, as dramatic as it was, you are kind of deceiving the audience just for the sake of feeling good about the whole thing. And that's why we love having curmudgeons like our last guest, Mr. Kernan, on. Kessler, speaking of curmudgeons, is scheduled for 5:30 this afternoon. We have Top 5 at 5 yet to come. We went short on Top 5. You want to go a little longer today? I mean, we can break now, and you can spread your wings for today's Top 5.
It's always my favorite when there's really nothing going on and we get to spread our wings. I know, we've got plenty.
Wolves win.
Wolves wild. We've got March Madness stuff to get to. All we do is win now.
More Wolves injuries to discuss.
Oh, yeah.
Vikings trying to add a little depth to their offensive line. That broke since yesterday's show, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah, so all that and more when we come back.